everyone. Welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Ranieri, and today's guest is the co-founder of Moxi Fitness, which is a fitness center that offers classes including cycle, shred, and strength, as well as a sauna, cold plunge, red light, and more. She's also the co-founder of Wren, which is a neighborhood wellness retreat that is coming soon to Costa Mesa. And she has a podcast with Wren's co-founder called Friends with Health Benefits. Thank you so much for being here today, Jaclyn Sanchez.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Of course. I'm so excited. I literally was at Spin yesterday. So I'm like,
oh, I love that. Who'd you take?
Justin, your husband. My friend and I take his classes like Mondays and Wednesdays. It's like I've done spin at like so many different studios. That is my favorite spin class. It's always so hard. It's constantly different. So, and then my husband does your strength class like 5:30 in the morning sometimes. Like, yeah, we're all huge fans.
I'd love to hear it. Thank you. Yeah, Justin's classes are a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, where did you grow up?
I grew up not too far from Orange County, about 45 minutes inland in a city called Corona. So not too far. My parents, my brother are still out there, and Orange County, Newport specifically, was the closest beach to us growing up. So I grew up spending, summers out here and beach days out here in Newport.
Oh, and how'd you end up coming to Orange County?
It was sort of a long path. I moved quite a bit. I moved up to Malibu for undergrad and then to LA to work for a while. And then I moved to the East Coast for graduate school, was in Boston for a few years, and then landed back in Orange County sort of accidentally. I moved in with my grandmother in between stuff to figure out what I was doing next, and then came to Costa Mesa and just fell in love with it. My whole adult life, I made really big, dramatic moves every couple years. And Costa Mesa was the first place I landed where I was like, I could be here for a while. I like it here.
Yeah, we used to live in Costa Mesa, like right on 17th Street, and I miss it so much. I want to go back and live there eventually, but it's my favorite.
Yeah, it's a really great spot. I have no complaints, no notes.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, you went to Pepperdine for your bachelor's and the Fletcher School at Tufts University for your master's. And you had such an interesting major. Can you talk a bit about what it was and why you chose it?
Yes. So I studied, international relations, and then I got a little bit more granular when I was in grad school and focused more on education policy. But I selected it because I was 18. And I think at the time, now that I've had some time to reflect on it and see where I've landed, I think I really confused an interest in subject matter with an actually good life fit. So for me, I've always been interested in the world and how it works in different places, different cultures, different people, and how we all sort of interact with people, both on a micro, but even more so, in what I studied on a macro level. And I knew I wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to see the world and experience a lot of different things. And I felt like international relations was a good area because there were a lot of different paths. I could have gone into media or the public sector, humanitarian or private sector. And so, I did that. And I kind of just put my head down and pursued it blindly for the next 7 years. And then it wasn't until I got to grad school and kind of looked up for a moment and had a second to breathe to be like, hold on, while I really enjoy learning about all of these things, is this actually what I want to do? I kind of pivoted from there. But
well, you had the most interesting career. You went on to work for Sony Pictures Entertainment as an analyst and eventually became a senior analyst. How did this role come about?
Sort of. So I pursued a couple of different internships when I was in undergrad, and Sony was one of them. It was supposed to be just a quick 3-month internship. And then I ended up getting extended for the full academic year. And then some big things happened at the studio while I was there. I worked in their security department and we got hacked. The company got hacked while we were there. And it was attributed to North Korea as a retaliation for this movie that we made about that Sony made about Kim Jong-un. And
yes. Right?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yes. So as a result of that, I was able to I ended up working on a couple of different projects that I otherwise probably never would have had exposure to just because everything was in such flux and really wild and crazy. So I was able to kind of show face in a lot of really important and meaningful ways in front of the right people. And then it ended up becoming a full-time role. And I spent quite a few years there and had a great time doing it. But yeah, good times.
Such a cool story. Well, I read that you were doing intelligence research and threat assessment, and that you also built, implemented, and managed Sony's duty of care program to improve staff safety. Like, holy crap! How did you come up with this program, and what can you explain? Like, what it was?
Yeah, so I was there at a really interesting time. It was like 2014 to I kind of left very gradually. So I was there all the way through like 2018. And things were really interesting in the world at the time. And there were a lot of places that had traditionally been seen as very, very safe. Places in Europe, different parts of Brazil, different parts of North Africa, where we had people traveling, we had films going on that were always seen as very safe. But at the time, these sort of like low level, like not super sophisticated, but very impactful terrorist attacks started popping up. This
Whoa.
was like sort of ISIS was on the rise, and there were these small scale attacks in Western countries. And so as a result of that, Sony, and I'm sure a lot of companies across the board, were sort of rethinking how they managed international travel. And usually for a company like that, it's your title, it's your seniority that sort of dictates your accommodations, what kind of hotel you get, what kind of transportation you get, all of
Mhm.
that. And then as these sort of things started happening, both in Europe with those kind of terrorist style attacks, and then in South America with different kinds of like carjackings and violent crime that were on the rise at the time, they had to reassess. And so we sort of had to look at everywhere we travel, everywhere we film, and decide what types of accommodations and what types of safety measures needed to be put in place for those people. And so, yeah, that was kind of like the advent of that. And I'm fairly certain it's still in place today, or some version of it in a newer, probably better iteration. But I was there when that was all starting.
That sounds like really scary and stressful.
It was at times, it was, but sort of, I mean, I think as a team, we reacted well especially when it
Mhm.
started happening in Europe, where we had a lot of travel, and there was this like moment of panic and realizing, how do we get in contact with every single one of our employees that is here right now and make sure they're okay as this is going on in Paris or in Rome or wherever it was. And we were able to implement it quickly and sort of like give people peace of mind quickly. So it was very rewarding. And it was
Yeah.
exciting too. It was always interesting.
Yeah, it
Yeah, it
sounds like
sounds
a
like a
movie.
movie.
Um,
Well,
when did you after Sony, you became a teacher. So what inspired this shift?
Yeah, there have been quite a few of them. Like I said, I made the decision at 18 and was this like ambitious, optimistic young little thing. And it really wasn't until I got to grad school that I sat up and took a breath and was like, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Am I
Mm.
optimistic about the path that I'm on? And this is 2016. A lot is changing in the world. A lot is changing in American politics and in a lot of the areas in which I thought I would work. And in my grad program specifically, it was a big mix of people coming straight from undergrad, people that had been in the workforce for a few years and knew they needed an advanced degree to move forward. But then there was also a big chunk of people that were like mid-career or even late career on sabbaticals or being sent by their organizations to study.
Oh.
And the more I talked to these people and got to know them and learned more about their lives, the more I kind of sat back for a second and was like, I don't know if this is what I want to be doing day to day. The subject matter, like I said, is still so interesting to me. I find it all fascinating, but does that mean I have to make it my career? Do I even want to? Um,
Yeah.
and so, whereas the things that I took into consideration initially were like, what am I interested in? What am I good at? I sort of added the question of like, what do I want my life to look like?
Yeah.
And I didn't think it looked like I was in DC in an office and in really high conflict, high stress, scenarios. And so teaching for me, I was focusing on education at the time in grad school. And I was like, you know what? Like, I think right now, day to day, teaching would be good for me. I think I would enjoy it. I think I would be good at it. I think it aligns with what I've been doing. And, the credential program is fairly quick and affordable, and I can immediately get into student teaching because of how much school I've already done. Let's just do this for a while and move back closer to home and figure out what I want to do next. And absolute worst case scenario, I love it and I'm a teacher forever. And that's a pretty good worst case scenario. So yeah, I came back and I did that, and I immediately started student teaching in 7th grade classroom, and then ended up teaching 11th grade for 2 years after that.
Oh, wow. How'd you like 11th grade? That's interesting. Like,
I loved it. It was all weird times because it was the pandemic. So it was 100% virtual. And, I would honestly, I didn't get a whole lot of time like face to face, obviously, with that grade level, but based just on that experience, I think I would have preferred going back to middle school. I loved my 7th graders. They were just like funny and spunky and like still so, pure and, so authentically themselves still at that point, and haven't gotten into any level of like cynicism or it was a really, really great grade level. I loved the 7th graders.
Yeah, my friend teaches that grade and she loves it too. So I can totally understand that. Well, now, is it true? So I read October 2020 is when you co-founded Moxi. Is that right? 2020?
Yeah, that's right.
No way. I totally thought it was earlier. So, how did this come about? Like, how did you find it? And also, that's crazy during the pandemic. That seems like it'd be really challenging.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it was. The pandemic definitely added some layers to what we were doing, but it came about essentially. I mean, at the time, basically all fitness studios were closed, and so a lot of instructors were out of work. A lot of my friends that I had been teaching at a local studio with were out of work, and essentially what happened is a previous client of both mine and my business partners came to them. I was actually not initially part of the early conversations. And they personal trained at 24-Hour Fitness with my business partners, Blake and Robert. And then they did spin at a local studio with my other partner, Matt. And they were like, wouldn't it be great if we could just build something with all of this? Like we know how important the cardio is, and we know how cathartic the cycle experience is, and like what an amazing mental health exercise it is. But we know how important strength training. There's not a studio around here with everything. Would you guys be interested in just looking around? And then quickly, Matt kind of brought me into the fold via our very good friend Katie Osumi, and we started having lots of different conversations about what it might look like. And from there, things really fell into place. The building that we're in now, which is so iconic, and I just love it so much.
Yes.
Used to be sort of like a mixture of like wellness, fitness. The concept wasn't really nailed down fully, and when the pandemic started, the owner was kind of eager to be like, you know what, this wasn't exactly working for me anyway. Let's try to find somebody to sublease this building. And in 2020, nobody really wanted to sign on to a 10,000 square foot building. So we jumped in, and initially we were just going to rent the parking lot and do temporary classes until it was clear what was going to happen in the world. But he asked if we wanted to take on the lease and the building, and we said, okay. And we got the keys, and we were open 6 weeks later.
Wow. Wow. That's wild. That's quick.
It was very quick.
I remember.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, my sister was like on the forefront of like, she was right there when it started and was like going to the classes since the beginning. And then she like pulled me in, but
oh, I love that. Thank you to your sister. We appreciate it.
Well, so the atmosphere at Moxi is so like welcoming, and I found a lot of gyms can feel more like intimidating. Like, I mean, even like gyms like 24-Hour Fitness kind of. How do you foster this sense of community and like the environment?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I mean, that was my experience too, especially coming out here. When I was in Boston, I found a spin studio that I just fell in love with immediately. And they had these instructors that were just so relatable and accessible. And they also were admiration. Like I would look at them and be like, be like, I want to be you one day. Like, you're so
Yeah.
confident and powerful and all these amazing things. But then they would also be so relatable and like connect with people. And then when I came out here and I started bopping around a couple of different studios, I felt exactly what you're talking about. There was like this intimidation, like almost this exclusivity to it.
Yes.
Um, and and I get that. And for a lot of studios, that's a major selling point and it works for them really well. And I think that's
Oh.
awesome. But it was not what we wanted to do. Um, and so, yeah, in terms of fostering it, I think at the beginning, myself and my business partners were always, always, always there. We had like a constant presence beyond our teaching schedules and training schedules and stuff. It was really important to us that like we make really real connections with the people that were supporting us early on, and also modeling what that kind of welcoming atmosphere looks like for our first big round of hires.
Mhm.
Uh, Now we're all able to step away from the business a little bit more. And I think the biggest reason for that is our hiring practices. When we interview people and we audition for instructors and stuff like that, it's not just like, what are your qualifications and your skill sets and can you teach a good class? It's how they interact with people and what fitness really means to them. If you hire people that are really passionate about what fitness can do in people's lives, it's natural for them to want to make it accessible and welcoming to everybody that comes in the door. And so I think, where we're at now as a business, it really is our hiring.
Mhm.
And that vetting process looks a lot different. It's a lot less about their professional experience and a lot more about their personalities and, what they want to do and how they want to impact people.
I love that. Yeah, I think specifically of my husband, he was very, like, kinda scared to go, I guess, and my sister took him to a shred class, and it was your shred class, and,
Oh,
yeah, and it was his first one, and now he loves the studio, and he was saying he came back, like, so excited, telling me how kind you were, and he was like, "She showed me how to use everything, and I wasn't, like, nervous or embarrassed, and you just made it, like, so great for him," so, yeah, that was his first experience.
that makes me so happy. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of shred, when I first went to it, it was more of like a weights to the beat type of class, and now it's more like cardio based. So how have the different classes evolved over time, and how do you come up with the ideas for them?
Yeah, so that was definitely the biggest shift. Honestly,
Mhm.
that initial iteration of Shred was born out of necessity. When we opened, we simply did not have the money to invest in equipment for that room in particular. For our business model, to be totally transparent, we don't need quite as much space as we have.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of like I explained, like this is the building that was available at the time. It was an amazing opportunity, and we were going to make anything work. So we knew that with how much we were going to be investing in the strength equipment and the cycle room and the build out, that room couldn't be equipment heavy. Like we were going to have
Yeah.
dumbbells and mats, and we were going to have to come up with something effective and enjoyable for people in that room for now. And so that's what
Mhm.
the original shred came out of. And I loved it. Like that was my
It was
baby.
freaking hard. It was hard. It was really fun
I
and very hard. Yeah.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think in this new wave of like Pilates that you're seeing in terms of like fitness trends and stuff, I think it would actually do very, very well now. But
Totally.
at the time, it was kind of a tough sell. The people that loved it, and it was a great workout. It was effective. It was fun. But once we got to a place where we knew we could really invest in that room, we kind of sat down and looked less at like where things were trending and more at like what do we think is going to be the most meaningful for us and for our message and for our community. And one of my business partners, Blake, is very much a hybrid athlete. Like by definition,
Mm.
he runs marathons, but he also strength trains with the best of them and is so strong and so athletic. And he started participating in this fitness competition called High Rocks, which is like gaining tons
Oh.
of popularity. And it's the reason that we wanted to do it is because we truly believe it is the best of both worlds for people. This combination of strength training and high intensity cardio is going to give people the most well rounded, in addition to like remaining active and walking and things like that, the most well rounded fitness experience that they can get.
Mm.
Um, And so we leaned into that, made sure that people that were interested in incorporating cardio, but maybe don't like to do things to the beat and like have the rhythm of the
Yeah.
cycle or the shred, had an option. And so that's how that was introduced. But I've actually, some level of like mat and low equipment class has been on my mind recently. So
Ooh.
maybe I'll sprinkle in an old school shred class here and there just for fun.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I do love the new one too, and so does like my husband and my friends that do love running. Love that class because it totally, yeah, you're right. Like every aspect of it is in that class. But you guys also have like breathwork and mobility classes that I didn't actually know about, and then also recovery services like sauna, cold plunge, red light, Normatec. So, how did you start to incorporate all of these things into your list of offerings?
So sauna and at opening cryotherapy and Normatec and all of that was always a part of the plan.
Mhm.
All of us feel really strongly about the fact that if you're going to be training as hard as many of our members train, it's so important to take care of yourself on the other end. And that's a missing piece for a lot of people. And it's a
Mm.
recipe for injury, and it's a recipe for burnout, and it's a recipe for not being able to have a sustainable fitness routine. And ultimately, that is the goal. It's not to have the perfect body or to PR every time you're in the gym. It's to find something that you can maintain for the long run. And we knew that recovery was going to have to be a big part of that. So that was the initial sort of like tech
Mhm.
recovery stuff. In terms of mobility and breath work, that happened pretty organically. I started sort of exploring alternatives in my own meditation practice, and taking breathwork classes around town. And I just experienced this like very transformative wave with breath work. It really blew my mind as somebody who struggled to meditate that there was this alternative mindfulness practice that almost like forced you into a meditative state, which I
Mm.
think a lot of active people need. Um, and so I sort of made it my mission to start incorporating breath work in a way that felt desirable to our specific demographic. So I think a lot of people think of breath work as like this like woo woo granola like hippie thing, and that's not exactly what you think of when you think of Moxie. And so it was important for me to find the right people who could bridge that gap, because I know how powerful and impactful breathwork can be. But I also know that a lot of people would like hear it and be like, absolutely not, I'm not trying that. So I needed to make sure that whoever was leading those classes were people that felt very relatable, that sort of lived in this world, this high intensity world of fitness that Moxie operates in, but could offer this alternative practice that could really improve people's lives. And Nikki and Darren are two of like the most talented people I've ever met, and most well-rounded and well-adjusted and balanced people I've ever met. And they do exactly that.
Wow, I want to try one of those classes. When do you guys offer them?
You've got to go. They're Monday and
Yeah.
Wednesday nights. They're both
Oh,
amazing. Yeah, I couldn't recommend them enough.
amazing. That sounds really great. It also sounds like I'd sleep better if I took those.
It's so nice right before bed. It really
Yeah.
is. Like you walk out feeling like you're walking on clouds. It's really amazing.
Ooh, oh my God, I'm excited for that. Well, as I was researching you, I came across Wren, which looks amazing. So how did you come up with this like wellness retreat idea, and when can we look forward to its opening?
So we're hoping for mid to late February, fingers
Oh my God,
crossed.
so soon.
We've experienced a lot of construction delays. It has been a journey. But yeah, we're hoping for mid to late February. Very excited for that. And this was really born out of my husband and my best friends sort of like entering this different chapter of adulthood. I think, as people are having children later and they have a little bit more time on their hands, and they're realizing that like, constant casual drinking doesn't feel so great when you turn 30. And it also isn't great for your health and if you're going to dedicate so much time to things like fitness and eating well or whatever, and then to kind of like take 5 steps backward because you have this other, part of your social life that isn't great for your wellness goals and your health goals. So we wanted to kind of create a place that was an alternative social gathering and
Ooh, I
one
love that.
that wasn't counter to your everyday lifestyle. And so that's kind of what we came up with. We also all travel together very frequently. And so we visited a lot of spas and retreats, and they're extremely expensive and extremely far away. And a lot of people only get 2 weeks of paid time off. And so, our belief, our mentality is that like relaxation and recovery and self-care and like soothing your nervous system shouldn't be something that you relegate to your 2 weeks off during the year. It should be something that you're able to easily incorporate into your day to day or week to week. And so we wanted to create a place where people could do that. So we do have sauna and cold plunge similarly to Moxi, but it's a completely different environment. You walk into Moxi, you're slapped in the face with loud music and high intensity movement. And Wren is going to be primarily outdoors, very calm, traditional Finnish saunas. We'll have massage therapy, and then sort of like a hangout area where people can come and spend time and get wellness shots instead of regular shots, and get
Yeah.
juice and, healthy snacks and things like that.
Oh, it sounds great. Well, I also saw that there was like something called contrast therapy and garden treatments. Can you talk a bit about what those are?
Yeah, so contrast therapy will be like our private sauna cold plunge suites. So
Oh.
basically the way that will operate is essentially people can kind of like build their own routine. There's definitely recommended protocols for contrast therapy, but typically people would do like 12 minutes in the sauna, 3 minutes in the ice bath, go back in for 10 to 15. And it's sort of like a back and forth that is really, really restorative for your body, really amazing for blood flow, really amazing for your immune system. And also just like your mental health and mental fortitude. It's such a shock to the system that it, similarly to breath work, like really forces you into this like amazing, meditative, calming, impactful mental state that is hard to get to for a lot of people that are running from thing to thing and really busy in their day-to-day lives and have a lot going on in their head.
Yeah. And then what are the garden treatments?
So the garden treatments, this was like our way of making this type of activity a little bit more accessible on a regular basis. A full 60 or 90-minute massage, people may not have the time. It's definitely a luxury. It's something that you're taking time out of your schedule to make happen. And so the garden treatments are sort of an in-between. They're outdoors, they're seated. It's still very calming, very relaxing, but you can get like a head, neck, and shoulder treatment for 30 minutes. It's a little bit more accessible. It's easier to fit into your regular schedule, something you can do with friends and, have your friend right next to you and either chat and drink your tea or be quiet and hang out in the lounge after. It's sort of just like an option for people that fits a little bit more seamlessly into their lives.
Yeah. Wait, where do you guys have memberships? Like where can I sign up? Take my money. I'll do it right now.
We will have memberships. And I think the memberships are going to be really, really impactful. And I think, we think it's going to be a core part of our business and within our model and our plans it is, but I actually think it's going to be bigger than we're even imagining right now. Because we have this big outdoor area that's going to be members only with like a big group sauna, a couple cold plunges, like a semi-indoor, outdoor, big co-working table where you can hang out for the day, a fire pit and things like that. And I think it's going to be a really awesome place that people are going to lean into as more people are prioritizing their health and seeking alternatives to your sort of like traditional happy hour. Not that we can't enjoy those here and there, but when you're looking for an alternative, I think people are really going to enjoy it.
Yeah. Where in Costa Mesa is this going to be?
So it's a block away from Moxi.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's right off 17th on Cabrillo.
Okay, so you can literally like go to a class at Moxi and then walk down the street and get a cool. Yeah, very cool. Well, tell me about some of the community events that you guys are going to be having. Like, what are some examples of these events?
So for Wren, we really wanted to like run the gamut. I think for Kate and I in particular, my business partner over at Wren, we feel really strongly about just like offering a big variety of things that are just fun for people. Her and I are both like pretty explorative and curious. And so we've talked about candle making workshops and pottery workshops and, like a Saturday vintage shop where people are able to do little pop-ups and things like that. And then also like group sauna and cold plunge things where maybe we have somebody guiding you through the breath and through the timing and things like that. So we definitely want to make events a regular occurrence, and some will be very centered on health and wellness, and very clearly that's going to be the focus. And others are really just going to be opportunities for people to come together and be exposed to like new and different things and working with their hands and being outside. I think more than anything, that's our goal, is that people that come to us are open to trying new things. They're interested in getting out there and like finding alternative types of social gatherings and all of that.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Well, tell me about your podcast, Friends with Benefits, and you're the co-founder of Wren as your co-host. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Very
Kate.
cool.
So, Friends with Health Benefits is definitely a little bit more of a hobby than these other business ventures. It's something we started really just out of like shared interest and fun. We both have been really heavily impacted by the friendships that we've made over the last several years. My life completely changed. Moxi exists because of that, and
Mhm.
I'm a part of it because of that. And I have both witnessed and experienced how impactful friendship can be and the people that you are friends with. And so we're like, we know all these amazing people like that are so ambitious and creative and interesting, and we should interview them and just like ask them how they
Yeah.
started doing what they're doing. And they've been so inspiring to us, and have really given us the momentum to pursue a lot of the things that we have. And maybe we can share that with other people. And so that was initially where Friends with Health Benefits came from. With the sort of advent of Wren and opening that, it's taken a back seat. But we've talked a lot about how these kinds of community events and things that we're talking about for Wren can definitely fall under the Friends with Health Benefits umbrella. And at the end of the day, like that's what we hope Wren is. We hope that you go there and you make friends that
Oh,
benefit your health and your life.
yeah. And also your merch is so cute. I've seen like 3 different girls wearing it at Moxie. It's
Thank
so cute. Yeah, it like catches your eye and you're like, oh, I love that. I thought it
you.
was like Moxie merch, and then I saw the Friends with Health Benefits logo. I was like, I love that.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a lot of fun, kind of, and that's the nice thing too is like in all areas of my life at this point, friendship and business partnership is like very much melded together, and so it's really cool that all of these projects are very symbiotic and everyone's really supportive of them, and it's been cool to see how we can collaborate and work together. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, is there anything that I mean, in addition to all the things that we talked about, that you want listeners to keep an eye out for? Anything you have coming up that's exciting?
I mean, the beginning of the year at Moxie is always so much fun. There's like this
Mm.
huge insertion of energy at the beginning of the year as new people are making new goals for themselves and new commitments. So, really, just being in the studio in the early parts of the year is always, always really fun. In terms of Wren, all of our soft opening events should be happening mid February. Those are going to be open to the public, and we would love people, even if you're not coming for a service, just to come check it out and kind of see the
Yeah.
space. And then I will plug my favorite event of the year, which is not until June, but the summer games at Moxie are just my favorite thing ever. So if you're at all interested, it's kind of like a mix between old camp fun games that you used to do and like a really high intensity fitness competition. And we just have a lot of fun with it. So look out for
Oh, how
that.
exciting. Very cool. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, but before I let you go, I have 3 final questions for you that we call the thoughtful 3. So, first up, what is a quote or mantra that you live by when you're facing a challenge? Or just one that you live by?
When I'll go when I'm facing a challenge, because
Mm.
that, we've experienced a lot of that with construction with Wren and just the permitting process and everything. And this is something I've said to myself for years. Anytime anything bad happens, big or small, I always say the universe is conspiring in your favor. And
Ooh.
I'll say that if I spill my coffee in the car, I'm like, my milk was sour. That was going to give me a stomach ache. The universe is conspiring in my favor. And I try to look at every hurdle in that way. I'm like, this is happening because something else better is going to happen, or I just avoided something worse. And I just choose to believe that that is the case. And it can be very helpful in difficult times.
I love that. I saw something similar to that on Instagram, and it's, like, called, like, ominous positivity. Like
Mm,
like, it's gonna be good. you can't do anything about it or something like that. I love
Yes,
that.
I love that.
Well, how do you approach risk and uncertainty now versus how you did when you were first starting Moxi or first starting out in your career?
Um, Honestly, I think I've always operated from the position of everything is temporary and you can figure everything out. So if it feels right, if you feel pulled to it, if you feel excited about it, passionate about it, you think it's a game that you can win, you think that it's something that you'll be good at and enjoy, go for it. I really do operate from a place of believing that everything is figure outable, everything is solvable, every problem has a solution, and so as long as there are no glaring reasons why something is not a good idea and you feel very deeply like it's something you should be pursuing, I'm very open to risk. I am not a super risk averse person. And I kind of just try to use very basic common sense. And if there's nothing that stands out as a red flag after doing my due diligence, then if I feel passionately about it, I'll go for it.
I love that. Well, lastly, what is one habit or routine that has helped you become successful in your career?
I think one that I learned through opening a business and one that I did not do regularly maybe 5, 6 years ago is consistently going to people that I respect and admire to talk through big decisions. Um, I have found that having a short list of 2 or 3 people that you genuinely trust their outlook and their perspective can be extremely helpful in your career. And whether or not you listen to their advice or agree with what they say, the simple act of talking it through with somebody who operates on a similar wavelength or maybe a completely different wavelength that you need the perspective of is one of the most beneficial and impactful practices that I have started regularly incorporating and probably will never stop.
Ooh, that's really good advice. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for doing this. I had so much fun getting to talk with you. I'm such a big fan of yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you, Chelsea.
Of course.